Coach Tony, Wrestling Podium Performance, and today I'm going to be talking about Charles Poliquin, the Strength Sensei's 1 hour calf workout. If you like what I've been putting out, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below if you got any questions or personal experience with the 1 hour calf workout. Sounds brutal. Spoiler alert, it's one of the most brutal yet result effective calf routines that there is, bar none. Why is that? Well, let's face it, the vast majority of people neglect training their calves. Yeah, they'll spend an hour on their biceps, an hour on their triceps, an hour on their pecs and abs. They'll spend a whole hour on their legs, but then they sprinkle in, almost like it's a garnish, a little bit of calves at the end. They'll do 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps of standing calf raises or seated calf raises, as if that's enough to really evoke a real, true result. All right, so before diving into the workout itself, first going to cover some of the anatomy of the calf. It's primarily 2 main muscles. You've got your gastrocnemius, the big muscle that sits on the top that you can see. It's the one close to the surface. It has 2 main functions. One, plantar flexion, or lifting the heels up off the ground, as well as a little bit of assistance in bending the knee, since how it crosses the knee joint and inserts up into the femur. The soleus is a smaller muscle that sits underneath the gastrocnemius. It, on the other hand, does not cross the knee joint. So it only helps with lifting your heels up off the ground. Now, both of these are going to come into some real importance as we go through the 1 hour calf workout. The reason for that is, while they have the same function, you can isolate them by changing some things up. The main purposes of our calf is as a shock absorber, so it absorbs a lot of force, which helps to do its second function of prevent injury. So a well-developed and strong calf area is going to help prevent knee injuries as well as ankle and Achilles injuries. Now that's going to come into importance in a future video I have coming that has to do with why we saw an increase, and we've seen an increase in Achilles tendon ruptures in the NBA this past season with 7, whereas previous seasons it was like an average of 1, as well as in other sports why we've seen a little bit of a rise in some Achilles issues, whether it's tendinopathy or ruptures. And then one of the other main functions of the Achilles is performance. It's going to help you run and jump. And then because with the anatomy of it, your gastroc and your soleus both come together to make your Achilles tendon, as it goes from the bottom of there right to your ankle, into your heel. Well, that tendon stores a lot of energy as you're running, as you're jumping, which allows it to then release it. So that helps with performance, so that you can run faster. And the last part of the function of your calf is your physique overall. It rounds out your physique. That's basically the 4 main functions of it, as well as the anatomy. No. All right, so what is the 1 hour calf workout by Poliquin? Well, you pick 3 calf exercises. Doesn't seem like much when you first see it on the surface, but each one is done for 15 minutes. And then in between each exercise, you get 5 minutes of rest. As you see, 15, 15, 15, well, that's 45, plus only 10 minutes of resting between exercises. Well, that's 55 minutes. Oh boy, this is escalating quickly here. This is getting tough. Not to mention, you do each exercise for aiming to get 12 reps. Why do I say aiming? Because as you fatigue, as you get tired, as the lactic really builds up and all those metabolic byproducts really start to build up and you're on fire, you might only be able to get a few reps. You might go from 12 down to 6, down to 4 reps. So you start off with 12, and then it becomes as many reps as possible once you can no longer do 12. Now, how much rest do you get in between each set is only 30 seconds if you're training alone. If you're training with a training partner, 1, warn your training partner in advance, and 2, it's I go, you go. In the event you end up where one person at the end of an exercise has done 1 more set than the other, well, the training partner's got to complete the same number of sets. So it can get very brutal very quickly just on the first exercise alone. Then you got to remember, there's still 2 more to do. Most people, when they train calves, like I said in the intro, do a couple of sets. The thing is with calves is they can handle an obscene amount of volume. Every time you're walking, you're moving, you're stepping, you're using your calves. So they have adapted over millions of repetitions in your life to require a lot of volume to change. That's why doing 3 sets at the end of a workout, yeah, you might improve the strength, but you ain't really going to get the calves to really adapt and force them to grow and to really achieve their potential in strength. Now, one thing you can expect from this workout is 3 to 5 days of some intensely deep, and I mean brutal, muscle soreness. I'm speaking from experience on that, in that it even gets hard just to put your heels on the ground when you're walking afterwards, because there's just been so much localized metabolic buildup as well as some damage to the muscle, which is why I also really recommend do not try running or sprinting or doing jump training for a couple days after doing this. Ensure that you've got a couple days of other training or rest that you don't even have to worry about using your calves, because they are going to hurt and they're not going to want to move. The first exercise that I'm using in the 1 hour calf workout is the barbell standing calf raise, flat from the floor. So I'm also going to be focusing on keeping my legs fairly locked out with this. The reason for that is so that my gastroc and my soleus are both doing the work primarily, and I'm not going to be using my quads to help kind of push it up and cheat in that way. Now, yes, I'm not getting full range of motion through my calf when I'm doing it with my heels going down to touch the floor. I'll fix that later in the workout with other exercises that I'm going to be doing. So also one thing that a lot of people do when they're doing a barbell standing calf raise is they kind of unrack it and they come out like they're doing squats. What for? Use the rack as a bit of a guide. Set it up high enough where you don't have to worry about going up and over the J hooks. Set it up so that when you're doing your calf raises, you're just using the hooks as a guide. You're not going that far with these. So here we go. So just get under, set yourself up nicely, stand up, and then use the rack as a guide. Also, something that you can also do for a little variety when you're doing this is you can change your foot orientation with each set. So you can go feet straight forward, you can turn your feet out, and then you can turn your feet in. This is going to change a little bit of the localized part of the calf that's really going to be feeling it. It's just another way that you can add a little variety to things. A lot of times, people, every time they do stuff, their feet are straight forward. So you're missing out on a little bit of development as well there. Here we go, another set, just to show it off. So with this one, I'm going to turn my feet in. So here, feet turned in. Up. And you just continue doing these until you get to that 15-minute mark. All right, so after doing the standing calf raises, which have whooped me already, I move over and do seated calf raises. Now, one of the reasons why seated calf raises, despite what some physios and what... All right, the next exercise is going to be seated calf raises. Now, there's people out there who say, oh, you don't need to do seated calf raises because just standing is going to be enough. And I call bullshit on that. The reason for that is, as I was discussing when it came to the anatomy, with standing calf raises, your gastrocnemius is really going to be working a lot because it does what? It crosses at the knee joint. Well, the other calf muscle, the soleus, doesn't cross the knee joint, which means, while yes, on a standing calf raise, both are going to be working, your gastrocnemius is going to be doing a lot of the work because it's bigger and stronger, which means a lot of times the soleus gets neglected. So if both of them aren't actually developing strength and hypertrophy kind of concurrently, you're going to be losing a little bit of that development. And whenever you're sprinting and whatnot, your soleus actually absorbs a little bit more of that force. Same when you're jumping or you're about to jump, because anytime you're doing a lot of those things, your knees start out a little bit with a bend. Or as you're coming down and absorbing things, the knees bend. Thing is, the moment the knee starts to bend, your gastrocnemius starts to get a little bit less tension into it, which is why when you're doing like a laying leg curl or a leg curl of any kind, if you want to really take your gastric completely out of it and really isolate your hamstring, you plantar flex your toes, you point your toes away, because now there's slack in the calf. If you want the calf to help out a little bit and be a little bit stronger on a leg curl, you dorsiflex so that you now have a little bit of tension in the calf. Well, the same thing kind of happens when you're doing just calf raises. Right now, there's not much tension in my gastroc because it's bent. So it's able to be a little bit shortened right now without any load. Now, I'm only going to be doing 50 pounds on the seated calf raise because my calves have just got the snot kicked out of them with the standing ones. When you're doing a seated calf raise, you're able to isolate the soleus a little bit better, which then allows it to get a little more specific hypertrophy and strength work done. Now, that concludes basically all the rest I get because I had to do this take 3 times because I messed it up because I was stammering. But with this, still, we're going 12 reps. And the main focus here is, yes, right now my feet are straight forward, but as I get going, I'll end up changing the orientation. So first set, this won't be all that difficult. Like it's still feel it. Yeah, the calves are on fire. So a lot of people when they're doing seated calf raises as well, they'll pull on this handle. What I suggest, hands on your hips or behind you and lean in a little bit. You'll feel a little bit more effective work because now you're not using your upper body's mass to counterbalance things. I will be honest, I don't know how many that actually was. I will display the number here or just below to keep myself accountable for this. Now, between sets, let your calves relax. Take them out, don't keep them under load. So my rest is already almost up. So with this one, I'm going to turn my feet out. So when you get yourself in the same every time, and then orient your feet. So see how I've almost got like a duck stance? I have to slide in a little bit further. Yeah, so I feel this right on the outside a little bit more intensely. So up, get deep into it each time, and then up. Get deep and up, really squeeze each rep. So we just continue doing this until we get to that 15-minute mark. This is brutal already, and I'm still going to have another exercise after that. And one thing a lot of people notice when they're doing seated calf raises is just how much localized burning happens. So as I'm going through this, I'm just changing my foot orientation each set. That way, everything gets a little bit of the fun. So this time, I've turned my heels out so that my toes are pointing in. And try to relax your upper body as much as you can. That's the big thing. Try to stay relaxed up here so that you can focus down there. Okay, so at this point, I'm dying. Like, my calves don't want to work right now. But the last exercise, I'm doing single leg standing calf raises with a dumbbell. So this you can basically do however. You could do it on a stairwell, you could do it in the rack. I'm doing it in the rack. It gives me something that I can hold to keep my balance and so that I can keep everything going. The reason I'm now doing the single leg standing after already previously doing standing is now I can get that bottom range in a standing position that I couldn't with the barbell where I was able to go much heavier, but I was only doing the top range. Now I'm doing the bottom range, and you're not necessarily going to be stronger in the bottom range. You don't get as much stretch day to day in your calf through that range. But it is still very strong. That's why doing a single leg, well, now you have your whole body weight on there, so you don't have to basically double your body weight because you got 2 legs, and add an external bit of weight so that you can then add just basically extra weight. It's really that simple. And again, you can change your foot orientation set to set. With this, it's not really any fun because you do your 12 reps or as many as you can, then you do the other leg right away. It's that quick. So just doing it on the outside here just for demo purpose. So you get that nice full range, you get nice and deep, and then all the way up. All right, switch. So use the ball of your foot as the fulcrum. Don't just try to be on your toes. Some people try to do that, and then you slip around. The ball of your foot is a great fulcrum point because you can keep it on top of the hollow square tubing here, so you can then do the exercise. So one of the things as well to really focus on when you're doing it like this, make sure you come to a complete stop at the bottom. A lot of people, they kind of bounce out of it. That becomes a little bit more Achilles work, and you're taking the muscle, what you're trying to focus on, out of it a little bit. We want to get as much localized, basically, accumulation of metabolic byproducts in the calf as possible when we're doing calf raises. If you want to be working on the tendon and whatnot and tendon stiffness, that's where you do plyometrics. Here, we're building up the muscle strength, the muscle belly, and the size of it by doing it this way. And remember, with the straight leg, the gastroc and the soleus are working. Here we go again. You want to try to come up onto the big toe each time. Oop, I'm sliding. There we go. Now I'm in the right spot. Oh, these are getting ugly already. So on this set as well, I tried to turn my heel in so that my toes were pointing out a little bit more. And as you're coming up, you're trying to get up onto that big toe so you can get a real hard contraction in the gastrocnemius and in the soleus in your calf. So as you can see, the 1 hour calf workout isn't the most complicated training there is, but what it is extremely effective and to the point. It's not adding any fluff. You're doing 3 exercises directly for the calves. Nothing else, just the calves. And as you can see from that, me just moving right now, not having a good time. It is very tough. If you're doing this with a training partner, remember, give them a warning, otherwise they will not like you and you might need a new training partner. Other than that, please take a moment now to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below if you've got any questions. Coach Tony, Wrestling Podium Performance. Embrace your potential.